So although oil prices finished the week not far off where they started, there's no denying it's been an amazing third quarter. And that's why we're going to take a look at it next in our sentiment study. Hello, everyone. Monty here, marcoannis.ig. Let's go ahead and get started because we're going to take a look at retail sentiment first. And in this case, week on week, looking at the week on week changes, the start of this week, there were majority sales 61%. But at the start of last week, heavy sales 67%. Now, usually when you don't have a significant change in price, as was the case for oil last week, usually you don't get much of a significant change in sentiment. So in this case, it looks like shorts are looking for any excuse to close out, and we're going to find out exactly why shortly. What about when it comes to COT speculators? You can see that in this case, this is from the CFTC COT report released last Friday, positioning as of last Tuesday. So outer circle for last week's report, inner circle the week before. Consistent, extreme buy 80%. There was an increase in both longs and shorts, but in percentage terms, coming out to 80% for the product that we're looking at there, WTI physical. But let's go ahead and pull it up and actually plot it onto the chart. This is usually the best part. Now, you can see that over here, range trading in the beginning, that usually causes traders to want to range trade a move. And then afterwards, once price starts to go up, we expect that clients are going to pull out when it comes to long positions and start to initiate short positions. And in fact, when we plot sentiment onto the chart, this is the left side of the axis. So the dotted line corresponds to the left axis, that's percent long. COT speculators, that's green dotted, blue dotted, that's going to be client sentiment. And there's the red line over there. So whenever you see the blue or green dotted line above, it means the majority buy. Whenever you see it below, it means that they're majority short. And anytime that way we can see if there's been a shift from one side to the other. And you can see over here, range trading these moves over here, prices go down, gets below 80. They then go to majority buy briefly. And then price starts to rise. They start to close out. But here's the interesting part. Unlike what we see with the FX currency pairs, unlike what quick to short into these moves, very cautious on the move up and looking for any excuse to pull back and close out those shorts. As we saw late last week on Thursday and Friday when prices went down, you saw them drop from 67 to 61%. So shorts aren't looking to stay in it for the longer term. And to give you a better idea as to why that is, let's go ahead and pull up the weekly time frame. And you can see over here that oil prices have been, there have been some volatile weeks. I like to maybe turn this a bit closer to sometimes you want to label this as an overview as cautious consolidation, but it's not that far from what we want to call consolidation volatile, where you have volatility on most weeks that's beyond what you would normally see on your average week prior, but coming back towards a mean or towards an average. So in this case, you can see that many times coming back towards an average, and that, of course, is going to entice a lot of traders into range trading those moves because, let's face it, that's usually the best strategy during that period of time. It doesn't mean that there aren't going to be those who are going to position for the longer term, but essentially you'll see them range trade a lot. But here's the interesting part. So we were looking at that segment over there from around, was it late July until now? And you can, and most of the time the blue dotted line was below the red line, which means that they're majority short. So one gets the idea and thinks, oh, does that mean traders on average want to be majority short when it comes to oil? Not the case. They're actually looking for an excuse to stay on the buy side. You look at it from last November until now, and most of the time, the blue dotted line's above the red line, which means they're in majority buy territory. Even when it was time to range trade, only once going into majority sell territory, the rest of the time having a bias towards the upside and anticipating gains, which they generally got right. In fact, every time it went below $70, you saw that the blue dotted line got towards extreme buy territory, around 78% and above. So in this case, the prices dropped, shorts got out, longs initiated, timed it beautifully. Goes up, they actually timed this one right as well. Went majority short, went back down, went back to majority buy, and afterwards, until this point over here, is when you finally see that longs were a little bit quicker to get out, shorts a little more quickly to initiate because they weren't anticipating a move this strong, but overall I want to say still relatively cautious. When you go back even to historic data before this, in terms of when they did go to majority short territory, still relatively cautious, which I would say was a good move given the fact that we had these strong gains. What about when it comes to COT speculators? Throughout this period of time, majority buy territory. There was a brief period of time where they started to pull back from the extreme buy because they're usually either extreme buy or close to it. That's kind of been the story for quite some time. Here you saw them get closer, not far off falling out of heavy buy territory, but the interesting point was over here, is when they actually dropped briefly out of heavy buy territory. That was a very rare occurrence, and the fact that it happened after successive drops in sentiment, that's usually something you want to note. And it looked as though they were going to continue to drop, but then of course we had some fundamental changes. I'm not talking about on the demand side. It was actually the demand side of the equation, the global economy, China weakening, that got a lot of them to want to take a much more cautious approach when it comes to the energy commodity. But then, of course, we had OPEC Plus's response and afterwards positioning for further gains. So that's about it from our end. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Good luck out there. And as always, happy takes.